Morning.
Morning and welcome to our High School Activities Association special board meeting. I'm going to turn this over to President Perkins, who has joined the meeting and will lead us through the agenda. Mr. Perkins.
Thank you, Mr. Flaflake. I'd like to welcome everybody and thank you for getting on today and attending the meeting. I want to remind you this is being recorded and it is live on the YouTube channel. So I will turn it back over to Mr. Flaflake for roll call.
Very good. Again, I echo Mr. Perkins' thanks for joining. We knew that it would be a challenge on short notice and really appreciate you standing in the gap. Our quorum today for our 79 members would be 40. We had 63 registered, a few more today, so I think we're going to exceed that. I'm going to move quickly through the roll call this morning, then make a few general announcements before Mr. Perkins takes the next action. So we'll just do name and go from there. So Dina Horst. Dina, do we have you present? Just unmute and say hello. So Dina is no. Jim McNeese. I see Mr. McNeese. Jim is present. Delvin Strecker.
Here.
Thank you. Linda Wiley.
Present.
Thank you. Catherine Smith. Catherine Smith Olathe, governor appointee. We'll come back and double check Catherine in a minute. David Abel.
Present.
Thank you. Matt McCabe.
Present.
Matt. Bob Dietz. Mr. Dietz. School board member from Smith Center. Come back and check. Keith Griffin. Keith, do we have Keith present? Okay, Mike Castle, Parsons.
Here.
Okay, Brian Geary, Olathe.
Here.
Right. Rob Bose from Lewisburg.
Here.
Mark Richards.
Here.
Mark, thank you. Craig Nelson, Renwick.
Present.
Ryan Burrows, Satanta. Not seeing Ryan present. Stan Boggs.
Here.
Stan. Sean Snyder.
Present.
Sean. Mark Guard. KMEA rep from Coffeyville, Mark Guard. Mike Harris, Southeast High School.
Present.
Right. Our go to our middle school rep, Steve Oliver. So Steve. Matt Garber, Sabetha.
Present.
Matt. Justin Howe, Olathe.
He's doing.
Do we have Justin? Nope. Okay. Court Haynes from May South.
Here.
Court. Justin Briggs.
Present.
Justin. Brandon Simmelink. Brandon is not in attendance. I'm going to go back through this. We're doing this by the same way we do it at a typical board meeting, just making sure from our first page. Dina Horst. Catherine Smith. Bob Dietz. Keith Griffin. Ryan Burrows. Mark Guard. Steve Oliver. Oh, Mark, are you here? No, Mark. Okay, sorry. Steve Oliver. Justin Howe. Brandon Simmelink. Okay, so we're going to take care of that. Now we'll go to our league representatives. Alphabetical order by league name. Shannon Haydock.
Present.
Mandy Greer.
Present.
Curtis Klein? Kurt Klein? Nope. Justin,
Present, I'm here.
okay, we got Kurt, thank you. Justin Sizer? We've seen Justin.
Here.
Thank you, Justin. Rod Whitmer?
Here.
You, Rod? Rebecca Morrissey?
Present.
Thank you. Bobby Tall?
Present.
You. Matt Westerhouse?
Present.
You. Dustin Wilson? Dustin Wilson from Larned? Okay, we'll move on. Greg Rosenhagen? Greg, are you on? It's not heard Greg, okay. John Webster?
Present.
John. Toby Van Cleve?
Present.
Toby. Andy Talicki?
Here.
Andy. Kelly Curley?
Present.
Thank you, Kelly. Kelly McDiffit?
Here.
Kelly. Jeff Hines? Mr. Hines? Kelly Whitaker?
Present.
Kelly. David Blocklinger?
Present.
Thank you, David. Eric Hofer Holdeman?
Present.
Eric. Sarah Richardson?
Present.
Ben Mitchell?
Present.
And Tim Bumgardner? Tim? Okay. Brent Schaefer?
Here.
Thank you, Brent. Paul Zuzelski?
Present.
Thank you, Paul. Mary Stewart? Not seen Mary. Okay. Tammy Romstadt?
Present.
Tammy. David Chink?
Here.
David. Doug Hess? Doug Hess from Hartford?
He's trying to join right
Doug's trying to jump on now. We'll come back to him. Greg Kelch, Smith Center?
Present.
Greg. Jan Hutley? Jan's unable to attend. Casey Seifert?
Present.
Casey. Darren Schroeder?
Present.
Darren. Brad Jones?
Present.
Roger Perkins?
Here.
Thank you. David Morrow?
Here.
Thank you, David. I'm going to go back through a few. We did get Curtis Klein. Dustin Wilson? Greg Rosenhagen? Jeff Hines? Tim Bumgardner? Mary Stewart? Doug Hess?
Present.
Thank you, Doug. And Jan, we knew was not going to be able to attend. Going to our final page, Stacy Reed?
Here.
Stacy. Shane Burns? Shane? Okay. Ron Levin? Ron Levin from South Haven?
Present.
Thank you. Travis Stafford? Sorry. Travis? No Travis. Okay. Travis Powell? No Travis Powell. Michelle Hubbard? Michelle's not joining us. Myron Graber? Myron. Okay. Jay Novacek?
Here.
Thank you, Jay. Marilyn Chrysler?
Here.
Marilyn. Rob Schneeberger? Rob's unable to attend. Sean Spoots? No Sean. Corey Jensen?
Present.
Thank you, Corey. Ellen Penrose? Mr. Penrose, principal of Turner. Unable to attend. Okay, Rick Byers.
Here.
Thank you, Mr. Byers. Mr. Byers, first meeting on our board. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Ashley Kappelman.
Present.
Ashley. Drew Tom.
Here.
Drew. Todd Flynn. Nick Owen. Let's see, Nick. And then Kenny Waddell.
Present.
Thank you. I'm going to go back through a couple. Shane Burns. Travis Stalford. Travis Powell. Michelle Hubbard. Byron Graber. Rob Schneeberger. Sean Spoots. Alan Penrose. Or Nick Owen. Okay, based on that, staff will tell me we have, of our 79, 55 in attendance. So we have met the quorum requirement. The majority of attendees today will be 28 to pass a motion. Our votes will be done today via Zoom poll. That polling feature will be enabled. And you'll have a countdown for Mr. Perkins to make those once agenda items the agenda item is populated. Of course, as with anything, a roll call vote is an option should you choose to exercise that, and it is supported with the second and the majority requesting that. We are going to turn this back to President Perkins to ask for a waiver of our notice.
Thank you, Mr. Pfeiffer. At this time, I'd like to have a motion to waive the 10-day written notice.
So moved.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Stacy Reed.
We have a motion and a second to waive the 10-day written notice. Any discussion? If not, Brent?
Brent is disguised as Jeremy Holiday today, running our Zoom poll. It's a good way to test our system to make sure it's working.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What do we have, Jeremy?
We have 53 in favor and 2 opposed.
Okay, thank you. Motion carried. This time, I would like to ask staff to introduce the item in front of us.
Very good. Thank you, President Perkins. And typically we would ask a board member to do this because of the timing and because we have been integral in the discussions. We have had the privilege of bringing a new activity to the association. And when you do that, sometimes there's bumps along the way and we move not too quickly, what we believe at an appropriate pace to introduce this item. However, we did not provide enough leeway for some of our proprietors to adjust schedules. And as a result, we have heard from a few schools, a number of schools actually, and school districts, as well as several proprietors who have asked us for this first year only to set aside the outside competition rule. Typically, we would not exercise the opportunity to do a special meeting, especially one on such short notice. But because some of these events are very significant for the students that participate, and because there is a strong plea from a valued group of individuals, our bowling proprietors and member schools, we wanted to bring this before the only group that could set this rule aside, and that is our board of directors. We are certainly entertaining through our regional meetings that come up this next week, the starting Monday, an agenda item to consider setting aside in a limited fashion the outside competition rule. That's not to be confused with what we're doing now, though the end result for bowling this year would be the same. Today's single agenda item, unless there are any other items, and Mr. Perkins will ask for that in a moment, would be to simply set aside the outside competition rule to allow bowlers that are on our unified bowling team to participate in the 4 tournaments that are listed. Some students might participate in only one, some may participate in multiple. These are statewide events that have been on the calendar for nearly a year. We do recognize that many kids have set aside league bowling and some of these tournaments to participate in unified bowling. From the perspective of the High School Activities Association, we are actually ultimately hoping that unified bowling moves to more activity, an activity for more students as opposed to another activity for a few students. But in this initial year, we wanted to exercise grace. We wanted to extend the opportunity to make sure school teams were full and that the athletes that are participating, those students that have those cognitive disabilities, are being served in their school communities. We have 29 schools that are participating in unified bowling this year. It is off to a great start. We don't want to do anything to damage that activity that's underway, nor do we want to damage our relationship with our valued partners, the proprietors. We felt like the tournaments was a good compromise in between. No rule at all. So still league play would not be included, just these identified statewide type tournaments that are there. So with that, President Perkins, that is the one agenda item that is presented for you today.
Thank you, Mr. Flafley. I'll open the floor up for a motion.
Mr. President, this is Mike Castle. I'd move that the Activity Association set aside the components of Rule 22, the outside competition, to allow participants in unified bowling to concurrently participate in those designated weekend tournaments during the fall season of unified bowling. Those designated dates would be October 16th, October 23rd, November 7th, and November 6th and 13th. And I'd make that, include that, this becomes effective immediately.
I'd second that. That's Doug Hess.
Thank you, Mr. Castle and Mr. Hess. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
President
Has anything
Perkins,
like this?
Yes,
Go
Drew?
ahead, Drew.
Drew Tone of Garden City. I've got some concerns with this. Having unified bowling, we've already gone through and made cuts and selected teams. We knew ahead of time how this was going to affect us. I understand the reasoning behind it. We understood how this was going to affect us and our bowlers and leagues and outside tournaments. And we had quite a few bowlers opt out because they would have had to forfeit those leagues and tournaments. We've gone through, made our selections. We cannot go back and remove those people from the team that we selected to pick better bowlers that play in those tournaments and play in those leagues. I think it also raises a much larger issue on outside competition. The way we're doing this brings a much larger issue to things like golf that we're going to be looking at our mini board of directors meetings, eventually tennis, expanding swimming, wrestling, a lot of those quasi-team sports. I'm not sure this is the way to do it. I think the cat's out of the bag. And in my personal opinion, the season started. We need to continue with the season the way it was rolled out to begin with, because there are quite a few teams that have already been selected that we can't go back and make new selections of those partner members. Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Any more discussion?
Mr. President, John Webster Lacrosse, CPL.
Okay.
Is there any precedent of anything like this being done before by the board of directors?
I'll turn that over to Mr. Flafley.
Yeah, President Perkins, thank you, and thank you for the question. And I'm not sure which component, Mr. Webster. I think that a lot of this is new territory. It's a brand new activity, so this would be the first determination. I can't think of a time. I have our administrative team around us where we have set aside rules due to the pandemic, but we have not set aside an outside competition rule previously.
Thank you.
Kelly Whitaker, the Frontier League. One thing I just think we need to consider, I'm a little worried. I hear Drew in that what does this open up Pandora's box, and what position does this put us in as a board of directors moving forward when making this decision potentially for other sports? I understand that this is for the unified sports, and we want all of those kids to be able to have team members and be able to participate in the season. And I think by not allowing those outside competitions, we're going to ultimately end some of their seasons, and that's always not a goal of ours. But I do think we need to be careful and make sure we're not opening up a Pandora's box and setting us up to have this conversation for all of our sports. And that's just a fear that I have in this conversation.
Thank you, Kelly.
So I'll speak to it from the Olathe perspective, since our district brought it. And really it comes down to the perspective of getting the help of the mentors. At least in our district, you know, the kids that are involved in the bowling are helping our special education students. Yes, they do compete, but it's more of a mentor role. And those kids that are involved in the program really are there to help the kids not compete. And I can't remember, and Bill, maybe you can help me. I think the term is helpers, but in my perspective, they're kind of mentors to some of our kids that need help with the bowling. And really what we're doing by putting the kids in a tough position here by either volunteering to help with our special education kids on the unified side. If they do that, then they have to give up their own bowling leagues, which they have participated in. And a lot of them really take bowling as serious as any other sport. And that's their number one thing that they do. Or they have to quit the unified bowling side in order to compete. And so, you know, the reason that we asked for this meeting and proposed this was to really do what's best for the kids in the unified bowling program, both the athletes, the special education students that are participating, as well as some of our kids that are offering their time, mentoring. And yes, I understand the rules that they do participate in the Baker format and all of those things. But at the end of the day, they really are, at least in our school perspective, serving as mentors and really helping some of our kids with special needs. So that's why it was brought. I do understand what Kelly said about Pandora's box. You know, I think we have in the past allowed divers, and maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but I just remember there was some one-offs where you know, you were able to participate or do some things outside, and maybe Bill can clarify for me on that. But that's the perspective from Olathe. It's really nothing more than to serve as many kids as we can, help our special students, and that's it.
Okay.
Walking it. Yep.
Any other discussion?
Mr. Perkins, if I may, I think that one of the references that Jay discussed was the Olympic Development Rule, Rule 4 in our handbook, which allows those identified programs exceptions for kids in those identified programs in that U.S. Olympic program to participate during their season, counting it as one of their events. And Jay, the term that we're using, the athletes are the cognitively disabled in bowling, and the kids that are full functioning are the partners or mentors, and either one are interchangeable there.
Thank you, Mr. Flafley. Any other discussion? Staff, any other discussion? If not, I have a motion on the floor to set aside Rule 22 outside competition for the unified bowlers. No other discussion? We'll take a vote, Jeremy. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. Jeremy?
40 in favor, 17 opposed.
But we added a person, so yeah, we've got. There's 7.
We did add additional board members to the meeting as it continued. I think Dina Horst has joined us, and I believe One other has joined, and I'm not sure who that is. Mindy we'll have to go through the attendance log to determine that's why we're up to 57 as opposed to the 55 we started with. So the
Well,
motion.
we met the majority of 40 votes. So the motion passed. Anything else, Mr. Flaflick?
No, sir. That concludes what the staff has prepared for you.
Okay. I'd like to thank you all for getting on today and being part of this, and want to wish you well in the postseasons ahead.
Need to clarify, it's not league, it's only these terms.
If nothing else, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
Mr. Perkins?
Yes.
If I may, staff is asking, and I just want to make sure that we reinforce that it is only as the proposal was written that the tournaments are included. League play does not continue. There was a reference, I think, in one of our speakers indicating that they could maintain their league participation. That is not part of this motion. It's only the 4 tournaments that are approved at this point, not league play.
Is there 5 tournaments though?
4 tournaments. One of them is on an optional weekend on November 6th or November 13th.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. So that concludes our business, sir.
Okay, thank you. Open the floor for a motion to adjourn.
John Webster motions to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Ellie Whitaker, second.
Okay, I got a motion and a second to adjourn. Any discussion? If not, I'll turn it over to Jeremy.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thanks, Jeremy.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thanks, staff. Thank you all and have a good day.
That must be the case.